Lindsay, both you and I have been in a ton of depositions in our careers. Sometimes they're not much happens, sometimes they go good, and sometimes they go bad. What I want to talk about a little bit is what do we do when a deposition goes bad? And I want to pitch to you or throw to you a couple of different scenarios. I want to start with the scenario where you're taking a deposition of an expert witness or a defendant doctor or what have you, and it's not going the way you expected it to go. How do you handle that? What do you do in that situation?
Okay, that is a great question and a very difficult thing to tackle. But the first thing I do that as lawyers can sound kind of silly to us is, but you have to remind yourself to stay calm because you're going to be sitting in a deposition that you've prepared for weeks and probably months, and suddenly you're sitting there and it is just not going at all the way you anticipated.
It's not a good feeling.
It is a terrible feeling. It is a terrible feeling. But if you stay calm and you stay focused, and this is why the preparation will pay off, and have your good notes and your good outline to help you, you'll be all right. With the expert witness for the other side, that it just goes wrong. They know everything that you could imagine on the topic. They have an answer, a rebuttal for everything. They can explain any and everything and why the defendant doctor, the person being sued, case care was fine. In that situation, all I remind myself to do is just be as thorough as possible. Because with someone like that, that's probably going to be as good as it gets. You might get a few small admissions, which is important. A few small admissions, meaning, or concessions, I should say, that, yeah, this was less than ideal, or maybe even I would have done that differently, which would be very helpful later. But I just get them to be as thorough as possible. That way, I know that come trial, I am ready to fully address everything they've said that I wasn't anticipating, even more at that point, and perhaps from tackling from a different angle. Get them to say as much as possible to get dug in and get set. But if you know that what they're saying is wrong, sometimes it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to rebut that through your evidence that you put up. And so it might not be as bad as you think anyway, because there's that old saying about deposing an expert: don't fight with a pig. The pig likes it and you get dirty.
That's right.
Or don't wrestle with a pig.
That's right. As a younger lawyer, sometimes I would beat myself up in those situations. And you just got to remember, they're an expert at what they do, just like you're an expert at what you do. That's an expert, neurologist or hematologist or whatever, and they just happen to know more than you do. All you can do is be thorough, be prepared, and get what you can get and get out of there, like you said. Let me ask you about a little bit different situation, Lindsay. When you're defending a deposition, meaning you're not the one that's taking the deposition, you're the other side is taking the deposition of your client. Or a key witness that maybe isn't your client but is a family member or some other key fact witness that you've been working with. What do you do when one of those depositions is going bad?
That's tricky, and that's a very disconcerting feeling as a lawyer. You're sitting there, you're hearing things being said that are not good for the case.
Not things that you talked about before in preparation. Right.
That's the worst. There's not much you can do because you're not taking the deposition. You're not asking the questions, but you just have to sit there and listen, object when warranted, which reasonable minds can disagree, but in depositions is really not that much you can do in terms of objections. And you just have to kind of listen and be there for your client or your witness. What you can do at that point is take a break at a good point in the deposition. Let's say it's going sideways because your client is just getting far too emotional. Either upset, angry, annoyed, feeling harassed, or a combination of all of the above. Nervous, yes. At that point, take a break. And frankly, take a break for as long as you need to, within reason, of course. But I'm not just talking about 5 minutes. If you need to take a lunch break, do that. And obviously you can't substantively coach your client or your witness during the deposition. That wouldn't be proper. But you can be a good counselor. And you can just say, hey, you're doing great. but I can tell that you're really nervous, or I can tell that you're just really getting upset, and it's impacting your story. And if you can just kind of get them to relax, oftentimes a good distraction, maybe get them something to eat. I've seen what I would chalk up to bad blood sugar ruin many a good witness. Just try to, calm the situation as much as possible and remain a calming presence yourself. If you act like it's going awful, then that's just going to make it continue to derail.
Mm-hmm. What can we do as counselors to prepare witnesses for their deposition? What do you like to do? We could have an entire hour-long conversation or longer about that, but give me a couple of key points. What clients should expect in a deposition prep session to get ready so that things don't go nearly as wrong.
Sure. Well, I would love to hear what you say about this as well, but being on the plaintiff side, I have to start out by commenting that preparing your client for deposition on this side, frankly, is a far easier job than when I used to represent physicians, nurses, healthcare providers, and have to get them prepared to sit in a deposition where they are being at least accused of having deviated from the standard of care. That is a difficult position to be in, and I don't envy any physician or nurse having to sit in that position. They're having to face a time where it's just not good. That being said, on this side, a lot of it to me is emotional preparation, because if you've been injured or your loved one has been injured, or worst case scenario of all, you've lost your loved one, that is very difficult to think about sitting down and answering legal and kind of business as usual questions about that matter. It's almost impossible for an individual to separate the emotion, and I don't encourage that. I just encourage that person to be as relaxed as they can, to be as natural as they can, to pause, to listen, take breaks when needed. And I think the biggest key is to listen to the question that's asked. Don't try to offer up a bunch of information. Everybody does that anyway. Doesn't matter what you say, they're going to do it. But just try the best you can to listen and answer the question.